Welcome everyone to today's Better Way Thursday workshop. We are so glad you're joining us. We have a super exciting panel here today discussing a topic that I've wanted to get into for a long time, which is how to get involved with professional organizations, meetups, and other types of networking groups in order to move forward in your career. So I have an awesome panel with us today at different levels of organizations, some who have joined as members, others who work as leaders, and others who've been founders. So it's going to be a fun conversation. We have Marina, oh my gosh, I already got a name wrong. Maria Haynie here with us with, is it Ladies Who UX or Ladies That UX?
Ladies That UX.
Ladies That UX of Salt Lake City, which is a national organization, right? But this is the Salt Lake chapter. Wonderful. And we also have Leslie Mack, who is also with Ladies That UX. We have Valerie, Connell, who is here representing Product Hive. And then we have Cameo, Doran, who is with the local Utah Agile organization and also a Women Web3 group. And I'm going to have these women tell us all about themselves and the organizations that they're with. So that we're just going to dive right in and let's do some introductions. Maria, let's have you go first. I'd love you to just tell us a little bit about yourself, just like a minute and a half, a little bit about your career trajectory and the organization that you're with.
Sure. Yeah, so I'm Maria Haynie. I currently work as a senior product designer for a company called eFile Cabinet. And I feel like every time I have to say this, I'm a month in, but I'm still not used to saying that. So I always have to disqualify. I know it's the least sexy name out there, but they are in the middle of a rename. So I have to say that. But it seems so far it's a really great company, and they have actually a really fun product and an emphasis on work-life balance, which is really awesome. I have been involved with Ladies That UX, which is a local chapter of a national organization. There are chapters, or actually not national, global organization. There are chapters around the globe. It was established many years ago, actually in London, I believe. There are a lot of groups for meetups around the world, but there's something different about a gendered space sometimes that you can speak about things a little differently. And so the need for those kind of conversations and also the need for like a micro community is where I believe this group came out of its original founders, a way to have like a smaller subset of people to meet and talk about perhaps a little more real or personal items relative to work, especially around what it's like being a woman in this field, in this area kind of thing. And so that's sort of the spirit of the chapter that we have here in Salt Lake City. There is a really thriving tech community here, and a lot of the groups here do really wonderful things. And this is just one group to add to that, just a little bit of a different flavor. Our events tend to be a bit smaller than say other ones like Product Hive that I think we'll hear more about here. So you just have a chance to get to know a few people better than perhaps a larger group. And so we kind of cater our events from being for aspiring and new learners all the way up to senior and above, where you're trying to perhaps elevate your craft. So we do the genre or the whole spectrum of those kind of events.
And have you been a member of the group, the leader of the group? Like, tell me about what roles that you've held within that group.
Yeah, so I started out just a lurker. When I started my career transition into UX, I was actually living in rural Missouri, which does not have a thriving tech scene whatsoever. So I was very acutely seeking for a community to help grow with me and to network with and have resources shared with and things like that. And I became aware of this chapter, and I was looking to see if there's anything even remotely close to me. So that's when I became aware of it. So I just kind of lurked at different chapters that seemed active, what kind of events they were doing, or any of them virtual. So I became aware of it that way. Fast forward a couple of years, I ended up moving out to Utah for a tech job. And I was not from Utah. I didn't know people here. I moved for this job. So I was really interested in building up both a social and a professional community and network here. And so then I started attending Ladies at UX events. And then I got involved planning it with Sunny, who had been the previous chapter co-lead, maybe about a year into it. And then with COVID, things got really weird. And I just it kind of fell in my lap at that point. Someone who had been helping lead events, and I kind of ended up being the person through COVID who kind of stayed connected to it. And so here I am trying to revive it after a bit of a dry spell during COVID and bring it back.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that overview and learning a little bit more about you. Okay, Leslie, tell us a little bit about yourself, your career, and your involvement in your organization.
Yeah, so I'm Leslie Mack, and I am currently at Overstock. I'm a lead product designer there. I've been in design for over 7 years now. I got my career start in Austin, and then about 5 years ago, I moved out to Utah. And along the way, I've been a part of a bunch of different organizations. I'm usually more of a member and not a leader of the organization, so I can shed some light there on kind of what it's like to be more of a member. I met Maria probably a while ago. We had done an event at one of my previous organizations pre-COVID. I'd helped bring them in and get that set up. It was a panel kind of like this. And then recently, we've kind of reconnected now after COVID, and been a part of a few of her events where we do some hiking events. And then just recently we did a speed networking event, so at Overstock. So it was really fun to kind of be help set that stuff up, be a little more involved.
Thank you so much. And I'm excited to hear your perspective on, like, you don't have to start a group. You don't have to lead a group. Like, you can just show up and have a good time and get a lot out of it. So that's going to be a great perspective. All right, Valerie.
I'm Valerie Connell, and I am in the product management space. I've spent all of my career doing product management here, and a lot on the East Coast. So I'm from Virginia, lived in Florida for a while. My group, Product Hive, is I founded it because when I left Utah to go to Florida for an executive in residence program, there was a group here that was doing product activities before I left. When I came back, it had dissolved. And so I spoke with the leaders and said, what happened to your group? And they said it was just too much work. And I saw the need, so I jumped in, and we had our first meeting with 4 people in the conference room at my office. And it has grown to 8,000 people now in the Product Hive organization. And pre-COVID, we had chapters all over the country. We sort of pulled everyone back in during COVID because everything was going virtual. We could then just share the recordings, everyone connected with each other. Now we're trying to figure out, do we reopen chapters? As Maria mentioned, having a local group really does build a community. But that's where we are with Product Hive. So
you started it here locally, here in Utah, and it grew to 8,000 people all over the world.
That is correct. The majority is still here in Utah, but we do have, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Chicago, all along the East Coast. And we did merge with another group. After we started growing, we grew very quickly. We had about 800 people after a year. And then another group that had about 1,800 people saw the synergies, and everyone who was in our group was in their group. And so we merged, and that brought us a little over 3,500. But again, it's grown significantly since then. We have a lot of people who leave Utah, go somewhere else, and say, I want to start a chapter here. We need this here.
I love that. And it'll be fun to talk a little bit more later in the discussion about the things that you do as part of a large group that you can do virtually and sharing resources and all those things versus that more intimate, building close and strong and deep relationships with people around you. So that'll be interesting ways to explore the different ways these groups work. All right, Cameo, I know that I see you all the time at events everywhere. So I know you're involved in a lot of different organizations, but maybe choose 1 or 2 that you've been involved with, and even one that you started.
I'm Cameo Doran. And, before I introduce myself, I just want to give a shout out for Valerie, because I'm involved in the Product Hive organization. I'm a mentor and have been a volunteer for a couple of years. And it's had such an impact on my career here locally, and is such a resource for anybody really working in product or design. It just really fantastic. So mad props to you, Valerie. Just really grateful for you creating that. So I'm Cameo. I'm also in the product space. I'm a professional product manager. Currently, I work at a crypto company in Utah, and I run product and innovation for our incubator. And we are incubating right now about 15 brands that we're essentially teaching how to do best practices for product throughout their life cycle as they're launching and growing. I have been in technology for about 15 years. And, in my early days of technology, I had kind of no idea what I was doing. 15 years ago, that was true for a lot of people in technology, and getting involved in professional organizations has been such a big part of me being able to level up my community. The first one I joined was an Agile community. I was learning about Agile many years ago. It was still very emergent, and it was hard to get good information, and it was hard to kind of establish yourself as somebody who knew what they were doing. And so I joined the Utah Agile community. There's a decently robust Agile community, and started really participating in those meetups. The other professional community that I joined early on was the Women Tech Council. It's very lonely sometimes to be a woman working in technology. And when I first found the Women Tech Council and got involved in going to their just attending, just was really kind of a breath of fresh air to go someplace where there were other women who were going through the same challenges that I was going through. So that was really, really a big thing for me. Recently, I started a group that's called Women of Web3 because I'm in crypto. What I've noticed is, even compared to women in tech numbers, which were already criminally low, the percentages are like 6% or 5% of the people working in crypto or blockchain or Web3 are women. And so I said, okay, we need some place for people who are trying to learn about it to come and like ask the questions that seem like dumb questions and be able to be vulnerable. And I think as women especially, we punish ourselves if we're ignorant about something, and it makes us want to not go and participate because we don't know about the thing. Whereas a guy would probably go and just say, hey, it's okay, I'm here to learn. So creating that safe space where women can come and say, hey, I'm ignorant, help me, is I think really important. So we just started it, and we just had our second meetup, and people are coming and they're learning, and it's great.
I love it. And I love that we've got like these founder women here in our group to say, it's just 4 of us, it's just 8 of us, let's see what happens. And I want to hope that we can all feel inspired from that as we're looking at that. Like, you don't need to necessarily have tons of leadership experience, have a long career in place. If you've got some people and you want to talk about something, you think that there's going to be value in getting together, like, go ahead and start. And Cameo, both you and Maria talked about something that I think is really important, which is the different types of groups and the value of having women only groups. And we'll discuss this a little bit today, but there's every kind of professional organization, networking group out there that you can imagine, of all sizes, all shapes, having all types of participants. And there's value in joining and belonging to and participating in a lot of different kinds of groups. I would not recommend to women that they only belong in women's networking groups, right? Because especially in our industry here in tech, like, most of the people that we want to be networking with are men, because most of the people in tech are men. But there is something really powerful about being with another group of women, that safety where you can be a little bit more vulnerable and not have to say, am I representing all women if I ask a stupid question? So I love that different perspective, the value of different types of groups. All right, so I want to move on to a next question. Leslie, I'm going to start with you. What benefits have you found by being part of a professional organization or networking group? What are the main things that you've gotten out of it individually?
Yeah. So like I said, I've been in different groups since the very beginning of my career. Back in Austin, there was, and I don't even remember what they're called, it's been a while, but they had a lot of networking events where companies would show up and actually, try to find people to hire in UX. So I'll say it was very instrumental in me getting like my very first, what I call, real UX gig. Before that, I was doing lots of freelance and stuff like that. So just trying to get my foot in the door. So I would say it was very instrumental in that respect. Beyond that, it's been really great in just meeting people in the community. Networking in general, I think, is always a really good thing to do. You never know when you may not have a job the next day, or you're just looking for that next move, right? So I've met a ton of great people, especially here in Utah. Been to product Hive stuff, of course, mostly been to a lot of ladies UX. I've even been on a women's tech council for high school girls. So that was really fun to get to connect with younger generation, trying to see what made sense for them in the tech world. So yeah, I would say it's been really, really great for shaping my career and getting to know people.
Thank you. All right, Valerie, same question for you.
I knew that this question was coming, and I started writing down all of the benefits that I've gotten from being in different groups. And I also went and I counted how many Slack groups I'm in. With technology now, it's just wonderful. You can be in a group wherever they are in the world, and I have 17. And so, like Maria said, I'm a lurker in most of them, but it certainly has helped me to see different perspectives. I don't know. Some of the groups I feel like I learn a lot based on the things that are happening. Others I feel like I see different perspectives. I don't necessarily agree with them, but if you don't mind, if I start listing off some of the things that I've gotten out of these groups, is that okay? So expanding my knowledge. I'm in several groups that do design. I am not a designer, and anyone who's ever seen me do any design work would agree with that statement. But I want to understand more about it because I have designers who report to me, and understanding. So expanding my knowledge, taking charge of your career path, that's a big one. Connecting with people who are in the role that you want to be in, then you can get to know them better. Of course, opening your network, it gives you an opportunity to be a leader. And I think that's important, especially for introverts. Historically, I'm an extrovert, and I've never seen the way that people who are introverts, they need to work harder at it. And a community group is a lot easier way to do that than at your job, because the ramifications, there's fewer risks associated with that. So an opportunity to be a leader. Mentorship, we talked about this. You can be both a mentor and a mentee in these groups. So you always have something to offer someone else, and you can always grab things from other people. And I like making new friends. I mean, they don't just have to be business relationships. There are people there that I really want to get to know. And so the community, also staying inspired and motivated. People post things, and that just helps you. It's like, wow, I really want to learn more about that. And the opportunity to give back to your community. So whether you're folding chairs or cleaning up after, giving back to the community is really helpful. I've got a whole bunch, but I know that we'll talk about them as we go forward. So
Valerie, that was such an amazing list. I want you to just write an article with that, right? I'm just like, I want to write these all down. I'm going to have you write an article for Tech Moms, or you can just write it for yourself and I will steal it and put it on our blog. But I love that. And as you were saying different things, there were so many ideas that I had. One of the things, I mean, our group is very much a group of transitioners, people who are new to this industry. And I love the fact that you emphasize that you can learn so much by joining 17 different Slack channels and being a part of this. And when I tell career relaunchers, especially women who've been out of all workforce settings for many years, like before you ever, years before you plan to go back to work, start lurking in these rooms. You'll learn so much jargon, you'll learn so many terms and what's in right now and all these other things. So I loved so much of what you said. Thank you for sharing that. And Leslie, I loved your ideas about the way, like, this is where we build our relationships. We can only build our network so big if we keep it contained to our own job, our own company, right? Our teams of people in product are small, but if we branch that out to larger community. So Cameo, same question for you.
So very much that learning one resonates for me. When I was very first getting into technology, I knew there were these things that I needed to know. And this is, of course, before Slack or that kind of, you could just go and find a community to digest. And it meant that you had to go and actually meet people and get to know them and like actually extract some of that knowledge from them. But it's a lot more fun to learn from a conversation with somebody than there is from learning from a blog post. And so definitely the learning. I am such a big believer in community. Our careers are built with the communities that we build around us. Giving back is a community thing. I love that Valerie emphasized that. I really, being able to own my career so much has been to go and build relationships with people that may not be in my industry. They may not be in the kinds of companies I want to work for, but every single person that is going to help you or you're going to help, that relationship has to start somewhere. And the only real way to do that is to go and start having conversations with strangers.
I love it. And Cameo, I know that you're an extrovert just by the ways that we've met at different
Yes.
events and things like that. And it's easier for someone like you and me, and we've got some extroverts here to go up and talk to strangers. But it's really hard for a lot of people. But that's what makes some of these events and activities. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. But like this, joining a group makes it takes a fear of talking to strangers from here maybe down to here. Like the fear still exists, but it makes it so much more accessible when you've got an organized group and an easy into that. So thank you so much. All right, Maria, same question. What are the most rewarding aspects that you get out of belonging to groups like this?
Yeah, I agree with everything for sure that's been said. I was trying to think some things that really motivated me when I started, like very, very career focused, very career focused. So when I started craving a sense of community when I transitioned, is because I had zero access to a network of my own. I didn't know anybody personally who worked in tech. It was not a presence in the family I grew up in. It was not where my parents or my friends' parents, no one worked in tech, no one in my community that I knew worked in tech. So I really felt like I was just kind of a foreigner looking in. And so wanting that community was, someone already mentioned, like you start to understand how people talk about things and you hear what people are talking about. So part of it was a realization of, okay, I don't know anybody in the space. I don't even know what I don't know, right? So going in and just like totally lurking and being like, okay, everyone's talking about design systems. And then after a while of that, you know, I coupled that, like what I would hear and perceive from these groups and the terminology, I would kind of note I've never heard of this before. I need to go look it up. And then I kind of paired my community involvement at the beginning with a lot of podcasts, which is, I don't know, but that's what worked for me. I would learn things I didn't know, and podcasts are kind of like continuing that conversation, but you didn't go to the meetup, but people are still conversing about it. So it helped me understand how these professional topics are discussed and talked about in a conversational way, so that I could then participate in that conversation the next time I was at an event. I knew how to speak to it. Does that make sense? So, and then you start to kind of learn when you start searching in podcasts, like if you start searching for a design system podcast, you start seeing the same guests are brought on to talk about these things. So then you start to recognize players in the industry. Okay, when everyone talks about design systems, they talk about this name that tends to come up a lot. So that was a great way for me to build both a community network, right? As I'm in meetings or I'm starting to perceive what's being talked about in my community, and then the larger professional paired with podcasts, and then the larger kind of industry players, who are the people talking about it there. So it kind of scaled both big and small. And all this can be done, you know, from virtual events and podcasts, like all of that can be done if you're living in Missouri and don't have actual in-person meetups to go to, right? Obviously, I definitely prefer, and I tried to build a community. For what I do in UX design, there is a national chapter called UXPA, and they're kind of like the more I don't know, professional chapter, right? Like they have a conference every year. There's like a membership fee to join. They have a mentorship program. It's kind of more professional. Like, I don't want to say like accredited, but it's kind of leaning towards that, a little more academic, I guess, trying to push the industry forward in these ways. And they have chapters, and I worked with the board of it and all that and tried to start a chapter in the city I was in. And there were like 3 other UX people I knew in the whole city, right? And so we started a small group, and it was just so refreshing to have in-person conversations and share those things. Hey, I listened to this podcast that I'm just learning about, you know, and have those. It was just really, really fun. So I don't know where I was going with that, but that's kind of how it helped me. Like I said, the small community and then connecting it, like the industry at large, has been really helpful for me.
I love the idea that joining and watching and lurking helped you learn what you needed to learn, right? That even to understand some of the vocabulary and concepts and things. And then the podcast kind of modeled those conversations so you could watch how they talk to each other and you could practice it. And that's kind of what we're doing here today, right? As people watch webinars or workshops, they also learn, oh, this is how we talk about that sort of thing. So I love that. Thank you so much. All right, Valerie, we're going to move to the next question. And I'm going to start with you. What sorts of events, activities, opportunities might we expect when joining a group?
That really does depend on the group. If it's a meetup group, then generally they're going to be meeting in person or an online event. But depending on the size of the organization, you may have access to things like Slack channels. So there's the written, there's the some people do podcasts, and you can join a community that follows a certain podcaster or what have you. But you have a variety to pick and choose from. And I love what Maria said. She dipped her toe in, she lurked on some of these things. She learned the language. And so you don't have to dive into the deep end, if you will. You can just dip your toe in. And as you become more comfortable, and I'm going to keep using Maria's example, as she learned how to have those conversations, then at those in-person events, she felt more comfortable talking about design systems or about a particular well-known designer or different frameworks that people were using, things like that. So you can pick and choose what makes you most comfortable. But to get full advantage of this, you have to be engaged, not just absorbing. You have to get engaged with other people. So whether you're comfortable with it or not, you need to start working on that.
I love that. I tell my tech moms all the time, I'm like, I don't care if you're an introvert. I don't care if you hate meeting other people. I don't care if you hate networking. You have to do it anyway, right? And that's so true. And we just all have to dive in. So in terms of their resources, their channels, their written communication, in-person events, Cameo, tell us about some of the variety of in-person events that you've been to with different types of groups. Last night, Ladies at UX had a speed networking event. So that's one example. What are some other examples of events?
So, a lot of professional groups, you might just come and see a speaker every time. And those can sometimes be nice to start if you are feeling that introvert, I don't want to have to go and talk to people, because you can come, you can not talk to anybody, though of course we don't advise that. And then you can run out the back door and you still did gain some of that knowledge. And to be honest, like, yes, I'm an extrovert, but part of how I helped myself get better and better at that is, I gave myself grace for a couple of years when I was still learning, where it was okay to go and sit in the back and just listen and learn and be okay with the fact I didn't feel confident enough yet to start to really push myself out there. And as I gained more confidence where I felt like I could contribute, then I started, really pushing to meet more people. And that kind of that building on confidence, then you can move into groups that are more, meetups. You are more likely at a meetup to be in a situation where you need to introduce yourself and network with people and get to know people. There are a lot of professional organizations that have some fairly rigid guidelines on the way that they run their things. I regularly participate in a group that's called She Suite, that's for women who are in the executive suite. And though their meetings are very regimented around guided conversations, kind of guided networking types of things that are designed to help us really address particular skill sets. And so as you're evaluating the kinds of places where you might want to spend your time in professional organizations, look at a little bit what their mission is, because some professional organizations are very, very interested in upskilling and giving really concrete sets of goals that you can achieve.
I love that distinction between the types of groups. I know, Leslie, we were talking last night that you guys just had a hike, that there are different things that are, there's a kid here in Utah. He's not a kid, he's an adult, but he's a lot younger than me, that hosts like pickleball, and he's got we watch an episode of The Office every time we get together. There are things that are very casual, very fun, up to the highest level of, we're doing very high level conversation. We are learning very specific skills. We are training to become executives and supporting each other in that way. So it really runs a spectrum, right? Maria and Leslie, any other types of activities or events that we haven't discussed yet that you want to throw in there?
Sure. So yeah, we did the speed networking. This is a structured social event. You didn't come to like passively hear someone speak. Like there was engagement, and that was intentional. We've done 2 hikes, which was really fun. It's kind of leaning into that local flavor. Well, we are in Utah. Let's do something Utahns do, which is go hiking, right? That was a ton of fun and so easy as a planner to plan. And then we had people like Leslie, who is like a master at using all trails and kept us on track, which was awesome. But that was a ton of fun. I definitely want to do more of those. And those are casual. They're not structured. You could just show up. We go on this hike. So we have a structured activity. And then, you know, you just mix and mingle with the people and you can talk about whatever. But obviously, there was a lot of UX conversation happening. We've also done quite a few virtual events. And those can be, those have a varying degree of interactivity, right? They could be like this, where it's like a panel and you're listening along. Or there could be Q&As where you're inserting yourself into the Slack. On Ladies at UX, we've tried different elements of interactivity where we have the chat, you introduce yourself, you put your LinkedIn handle, just like small ways to make those more interactive. What else have we done? We've also, in the past, we've done on the more social side, one of my favorite Ladies at UX ones we've done has been a White Elephant holiday gift exchange, which was a ton of fun. You just brought something that was somewhat UX-y-ish or not at all. And we shared that and just did a little bit of like UX industry trivia, which actually exists. And it was a ton of fun.
Leslie, anything else that we've forgotten?
I'll say too, I've also been a part of like some of the SheTech stuff where they've brought high school girls from all over Utah to one area, and we've done a lot of different like there was training sessions or like building things sessions in tech, and then there was also like ideation sessions. So that was a really fun one too, and again kind of gave back to that younger generation. So I enjoy a lot of events like that where you feel like you're in more of that mentorship role too, and giving as much knowledge as you've gained in your short career or long career.
I love it. And I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that emphasizes the fact that a lot of these groups do get involved in service, right? That it's a great way to be doing community service. And sometimes an organization will say, we're going to do something that's not really related to our area. We're going to do stuff for Santa or whatever, just as a way of giving back to the community. But in the case of SheTech under the Women Tech Council, we are using our own direct skills, competencies, and expertise in order to mentor and train the next generation, which is a wonderful way for groups to provide opportunities for service. So Cameo, or I can't remember if one of you hinted at this a little bit before, of the more like legit high-level professional organizations that do have membership fees, and they'll have huge conventions and things like that. And that's at one end of the spectrum versus just like a small little meetup group where you don't have any fees, you just get together and talk about stuff and kind of get to know each other. So I want everybody to understand, like, there really is every level that you want to get involved, and there'll be different pros and cons of all these different groups. So Cameo, do you want to speak a little bit more to that, and then we'll head on to the next question?
Yeah, there are some very expensive professional organizations. And in fact, the one I mentioned, C-Suite, which is local here, my organization, I went and kind of advocated for myself, for my company to pay for it, because it would have been cost prohibitive for me to be involved in. There's another organization I've been wanting to join, and I haven't been pushing. It's called Chief, and it's a for women who are in the C-Suite and the exec, really trying to push into those executive ranks. I would say with caution, look at any group that is going to charge you very much money to be involved, and make sure that you're getting a lot of return on that investment. A group like Chief charges $5,000 a year to be in their organization. And what you get in return for that is to have conversations with, executives at very, very high powered organizations that could be a pathway for you to move into an executive position at someplace that might have otherwise been out of your reach. But generally, I think that most organizations that can have incredible impact shouldn't cost a lot. And I would be a little concerned if you're trying to get into the average, kind of, you're just trying to grow your career or learn about, and you saw a big price tag.
I love it. And that's a great, some of these groups, you know, it might be $29 a year or $99 a year, you know, something that to pay for a little food or to, you know, pay for our meetup fee or something like that. But that's a great distinction to make, that there might be value at some point in your career to paying a, you know, a high ticket price to be part of a very exclusive professional organization, but it is not necessary, and certainly not at the early stages of your career. I agree, like, be on the lookout for that. If someone's trying to sell you $5,000 a year for an entry level group, they're not after your professional development, they're after your money, right? So we'd want to look out for that. All right, so Cameo, you've already hinted at this a little bit, but it's your turn to start with this question. How do you get over the awkwardness or the fear of joining some of these groups and getting involved?
I think part of the beauty of joining these groups is getting over that fear. You know, fear of walking up to a stranger and introducing yourself it's just like anything else. If you can practice doing it, a lot of that fear goes away, and you get the skills that it takes to do it well and to feel comfortable with your ability to do it well. And the way I've practiced is I just have gone to a ton of things. And like I said, for my first little while, I was very much, you know, kind of quiet in the background, and I wouldn't say very much until I kind of felt like I had that confidence to approach that one person who I kind of knew who they were. I didn't know them personally, and say, hey, I saw your post on LinkedIn. I thought it was really cool. Can we talk for a minute? You know, and just taking those baby steps, I think is the way to do it. And then you find out that you meet amazing people. Like Robin, you and I met at a thing, you know, where we started to just realize we were friends. And then it starts to be less frightening because, you know, you get to meet awesome people.
I love it. So you just got to dive in, no matter how scary it is, and practice, right? Okay, yeah. Maria, what is your advice on getting over the awkwardness and the fear?
Yeah, the first thing would be, you don't have to be professional to go to professional things, right? We talked a little bit about lurking. You can be aspiring and learning and still go. So don't cut yourself out and be like, oh, I don't have experience or whatever. Like, everyone has to start somewhere. So just, you know, put that thing to rest. I think the other thing would be setting a small goal for yourself. So for me, I have found that it's much more comfortable for me now, but at first, when I really didn't know anybody in Utah, I would go to events. Making sure I at least spoke to the people I sat next to was a good goal. And for me, I'm just going to speak tactically here, because sometimes I know there's some people I've mentored who, like, that in and of itself feels like a really big challenge. So for me, just like, is this seat taken? No. Hi, sit down. I'm Maria. Like, immediately within the first 30 seconds of sitting there, just get that out there. You said your name, and then if the conversation goes, it goes. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But you at least put that out there. Like, that was like a starting point, right? So I'm gonna throw that out there. Just getting it out, like the first 30, 60 seconds. Just put that awkwardness to rest. At least have introduced yourself, right? And then usually a conversation almost always follows, right? Once you know someone's name, it's really easy to just start talking after that.
I love that idea. Just set yourself little goals. Every time we have a networking event for my tech moms, I just give them a challenge. And I'm like, and I set a little bit higher goals because I'm very ambitious, but I'm like, I want you to talk to 10 people that you don't know tonight. But starting with 3, or even just the 2 people next to you, I love it. And it just feels a little bit more approachable. And then maybe you can set a little bit bigger goal the next time. Okay, Leslie, how do you get over the fear and awkwardness?
Yeah, so I know a couple of you have said you're extroverts. I am definitely introverted, and so it's took me a while to figure out how to talk to random people, strangers. I'll say, one, the event matters, right? Like, I think when you are going to a speaker, and just watching somebody present, that can be really hard. And I love what Maria said. I never even thought of that. That's a great idea. So I might use that. Those are hard, but like, if you go to events that are specifically for meeting people or more casual, I think that's so much easier for me personally. And what I kind of do is throw a little bit of my practice at it. So I kind of UX the situation. I treat it as a bit of a research mission. And I just try to ask people a lot of questions. I usually start with a softball question of, like, where do you work? And, how long have you worked there? And just like super simple things like that. And for me, after that, the conversation just typically takes a natural path and you get to know that person briefly, or maybe you find that you connect, or you try to connect on LinkedIn. That's typically what I do, I guess. I throw a little UX at it.
I love it. That's a great idea, bringing your work skills into your life, right? Perfect. All right, Valerie, what advice do you have for us to get over the awkwardness and the fear?
I don't generally feel that myself, and so I'm not necessarily the best person, but the thing that I do is I look for someone who isn't talking with anyone else, and I try to pull them in. I don't have a problem sitting on the front row. I rarely sit in the back row. I'm going to sit up there. I'm going to raise my hand. I'm going to do that. But I want everyone else to feel that they also have that opportunity. And so if there's a meal, I look for somebody who's eating alone and go and try to get them engaged, because the more you sit alone, the less likely you are to go to the next one because you felt alone. And so there's always going to be someone there who feels less engaged than you. And so find that person. You don't want to be wallflowers together, for lack of a better term, but there's safety in numbers, if you will. So two of you talking, someone else might come up and talk. And I think it's important to get outside of yourself, stop worrying about yourself, and start looking around and seeing if there's someone else that you could bring in.
Valerie, I love that advice so much. That is the advice I give to my teenagers, actually. And sometimes when we're adults at networking events, we kind of feel like we're in junior high again, right? But and you're doing it, even though you're not uncomfortable, you're doing it kind of from a place of welcoming. But even if you're coming from a place of fear, like that's the least scary thing. It's much scarier to go up to a group of people who are already talking and engaged than it is to just walk over to someone who's alone and say, "Hey, can I join you? Can I sit next to you?" So I love that. And along those same lines, one thing that I tell tech moms all the time is if you're going to an event, just bring a friend. Like it's so much easier. But I tell them, you're not allowed to only sit in the corner and talk to each other all night. Like you have to use that strength and support of having somebody else with you to meet new people. And I hereby volunteer for everyone in the future. Like I will be your wing woman at every event. Like I love to go to it. So I tell my very nervous and shy tech moms, take me to an event with you. I will introduce you to 20 people. You'll be okay. And then you'll be a little bit better at it next time. So all great ideas. I love those. Thank you so much. All right. We are back to starting with Maria with this question. How do you get it? Oh, do you know what? I had one more idea that I wanted to share about that last one with the awkwardness. And it was to volunteer to help. And Leslie, I know that you've like helped out at events and things like that, even though you're a little bit of an introvert. If you are busy, if you are setting up the chairs, if you're doing other things, you don't feel that awkwardness of just standing around. You're like, I'm doing some work, I'm helping out.
Yeah, honestly, that is why I do that a lot, because it gets me involved and it forces me to be more extroverted. So I that's a little trick too. If you find a group that's willing to have you help out.
I'm going to say almost any group is going to be willing to
True.
help, right?
True.
Just message the organizer and say, what can I do ahead of time? Or even just when you get there, if you haven't done it, just say, how can I help? I'd love to be of service. That's wonderful. All right. So back to Maria. How do we, if we've been lurking for a while, we've been getting involved, being a part of an organization, how do we start stretching ourselves and moving into leadership of an organization?
That's a good question. So the two groups, I'm in a room where the sun is like chasing me around a round table. I keep rotating around it. So the two groups that I've been a part of, Ladies at UX Leadership, the group itself offered opportunities and I partook of them. So there was a little bit of an invitation and then I definitely made myself a presence, made myself known, not with the intention to become a leader. Like I did just want to get to know people. And leading or being involved in the leadership of that was a good way for me to do that. So just like what we talked about, getting involved as a helper was one way that I was able to see how the events were planned, the structure behind it. And then there was an opportunity where I was able to take more of a leadership role in planning events, and then it kind of evolved from there. The other group that I helped found, UXPA, that chapter in Columbia at that time in Missouri. That one was really interesting. To get involved at that level, I hadn't actually been able to participate. It didn't exist, right? I wasn't able to lurk and then join. I had to just like say, I think there's value in this group. I've seen from afar what it can do in other places, and I want to bring that to my community. And so it's a lot more me reaching out to their like kind of governing body and like having those discussions. So it was me initiating, and then just being open to a lot of guidance from them. I had to be pretty humble. Like I had a strong idea and I had to express confidence in myself to do this, but also be really humble. Like, also, I don't know what I'm doing. So I am going to ask a lot of questions. And I will say in both experiences, I feel like there's no need to put a lot of pressure on yourself. I like what was said earlier about this is joining and being a leader in a community organization. It's a way to practice a leadership muscle that you could then apply to your day job with a different set of risks associated. I really like that framing of it. It's also a way to, there are ways to connect those, right? If you cannot find the opportunities at work, you can say, here's a concrete example of me executing on these leadership skills. This is why I want to move into this position at work. And vice versa, you could use your framing, hey, I just started at my work an employee resource group for women in tech. I want to share what I've learned over here. Maybe I can volunteer as a speaker from what I've been doing at work in this group. So your expertise can kind of go both ways, and both of those can help you level up in those positions professionally and in the community.
I love it. That's so cool. It's easier, I think, to give yourself a promotion in your professional organization or networking group than it is at your own job. But then you can earn that promotion and demonstrate your skills through the group, and then say, look what I've done. I could also do this at work. Now, Leslie, I know you haven't been in leadership. Is there anything you want to add here to this question, or do you want to skip this question?
I should probably skip this question because I'm not a leader in any organizations, but I will say just helping out with organizations has given me confidence in my day job to be more of a leader in my day job. So that's definitely helped.
I love that. And Leslie, I'm just going to tell you that even though you haven't had like a formal leadership yet in one of these organizations, I was going to say sometimes the way that you become a leader in an organization like this is that you're the last one to say, not it, right? If you weren't quick enough to get yourself out of a situation, you will end up in leadership position. And just by being a part of it, you'll find that as well. Valerie, how about you? How do you, I mean, you started something, but how do we become a leader?
I think as our organization has grown, we've put a lot of leadership positions in place, and it almost always is filled by people who are volunteering to do things before that. So just like Maria said, the more you become involved, the more you become visible to the existing leadership. And you can step in, and whether you volunteer or you're voluntold, hey, we need you in this role, by being visible, that's how you get there. And so I just echo what Maria said. Start helping out. If you want to be actively involved, then be actively involved.
I love that so much. And this is such a great, I mean, these kinds of organizations are such a great opportunity to start crafting the experiences and the skills that we want to have that maybe we don't have access to at our own jobs. So if we want to do more of that design, if we want to do something and they're not going to have us do it at work because we're not that good yet, we can start to do it in this organization and build up those skills. So I love that opportunity. Okay, Cameo, what do you say about this?
I'm going to echo what everyone else has said, especially like look at any organization that you join. And if you want to get involved, like you don't say, how can I be involved in leadership? It's first, how can I give back to this organization that's brought me so much value? Product Hive for me is a great example. I started asking at Product Hive events a couple of years ago, how can I help more? How can I get involved? And that put me into a conversation where they needed some help with their mentor organization that's inside of Product Hive. And so then I, volunteered for how can I help in that? And really, am I in leadership? No. Am I in a place where I can have incredible impact on other people coming into that organization? Yeah. And honestly, for me, that's more important than do I have like a check mark on the side of my name that says I'm in some leadership position. And that's easy for me because I have a leadership role already. I don't actually need more responsibility, but the giving back part is where you really start to get the value from your professional organization when you're now bringing your own expertise that you've gained back into that organization and using it to grow and support that organization.
Cameo, that's such a beautiful perspective to remember. Like, we don't need a leadership title to be a leader, right? We don't need to be the vice president of the organization in order to have an impact and an influence. And one of the things I was thinking about last night when I was at the ladies that UX event is that that there are a lot of emerging professionals, young people just working to break into the field, and then there are a lot of people who are really well established. And right when I first got in there, I'm like, it's fun to see what different people get from their involvement and being there at the organization. Of course, people are just getting, I'm like, I'm just looking for a job. I'm trying to get some contacts. I'm trying to learn some skills. And as we get further on, we're saying, I'm looking for a way to give back and make a difference and mentor and help other people, because I've already gotten to where I need to get my career for right now. And I love the chance to bring along the next generation and help and support them. So we're
I
coming.
just want to correct Cameo on one thing. She said, while she's not considered a leader, everyone considers Cameo a leader.
Thank you.
You do not have the title, but you are considered leadership in the Hive.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I love it. And that's so clear from your presence and demeanor. Wonderful. So as we are finishing up today, I would love for each of us to share one piece of advice. Just take 30 seconds to 1 minute to someone who is emerging, a young, or not young. Lots of us tech moms are not young, but we are emerging new professionals in our field. So thinking about joining groups, getting involved, becoming parts of networking organizations or other types of professional organizations. What's one great final bit of advice that you give to all of our tech moms? Leslie, let's go ahead and start with you on this one.
Yeah, see, it's a great question. I think my piece of advice would be kind of to mirror what Maria said and set a goal for yourself. Go to one professional event a quarter, or one, 2 or 3 a year, something like that, where you've set that goal. So you're like, okay, I know I want to get out there, meet people. Here's how I'm going to do it.
Perfect. I lost my mouse, so I couldn't unmute myself. Thank you so much, Leslie. Wonderful. All right, Valerie, one piece of advice.
And that's the one I was going to give, but since that's already been given, I would say work on your personal brand, on your elevator pitch, so that when you do meet these people, that you're able to tell a little bit about yourself, what you're looking for, and make sure that you also are interactive with other people. So listen as much as you talk.
Those are several wonderful golden nuggets right there. The listening as much as you talk. I know that, and I don't have a lot of awkwardness at professional events, but part of the reason is because I just ask people questions. And even though I'm a huge talker in my regular life, I hardly ever say anything at networking events because people love to talk about themselves. And if you can just get them started, you will learn so much, but also they will really like you because they're like, oh, that Robin, she was so great because I just talked to her for 5 minutes and she listened to me, which was awesome. But the other thing, and now I'm wondering if I forgot the first point that I wanted to make about remind me the first thing that you said, Valerie.
Your personal brand.
The personal brand.
I love elevator pitch.
You were talking about your elevator pitch, and I just want to remind everyone, we have another workshop just like this on writing an elevator pitch. So go check it out. That's why I wanted to make sure to mention that. Perfect. Wonderful advice. Thank you so much. Cameo, one piece of advice.
Once you go to the trouble to introduce yourself to somebody and you've gone through that moment of pain, figure out how to take that relationship out of that moment, and so that the next time you remember each other. LinkedIn is still the easiest way to do that. Come into the event with your QR code for your LinkedIn profile right there. And every single person, if you go to the trouble to introduce yourself, say, hey, let's go ahead and connect on LinkedIn right now. Send them a message afterwards, and just maybe even have one that you reuse over and over again. It was great to meet you. Love to connect with you in more ways. And then, if you just try and figure out some way to not make it a one-time thing, because then you have to reintroduce yourself over and over again.
That's wonderful advice. I love it. I've already been through all the pain. Let's make that pain worth it. And Cameo, like you, I am a LinkedIn evangelist. All of you are here today because of LinkedIn. I found you all. I knew some of you, but you're all here because we found each other on LinkedIn. And it provides so many great opportunities for us to build our networks and grow. Kate, Maria, you get the final word today. What is our final piece of advice?
Oh, no pressure, no pressure. I would say no one's going to create opportunities for you. So if you come home from it and you're like, man, I didn't meet anybody, what did you do to do that? And we kind of talked about goals and different ways you can leverage that. But also creating your own community isn't going to happen overnight. Like it's going to have to. In Utah, there's a lot of structure to it. There are a lot of existing places, but to get yourself visible, your own LinkedIn presence, like you have a page people can connect to. Like there is work and things you need to do to make yourself in the offer to be able to take advantage of the opportunities that will come from networking. And you're the only one who can do that for you. Like you can't just, other people are rising. Why is that not happening for me? Like you have to create these opportunities for yourself, being in the right place, meeting the right people, and being prepared to take action when you are in those situations. Those are all things within your control that you can help influence the outcome for.
That is a wonderful final word. No one is responsible for our career. Nobody else is going to take action. We are the ones that have to make those moves. I love that.
Yeah.
Friends, thank you so much for being with me today. This was a wonderful conversation. So much valuable information and advice for emerging professionals at in all different stages who are getting ready. Sorry about that, friends. That means it's time for us to finish up. So thank you so much. I'm really grateful, and have a fantastic week, everyone.